right, Slick Talkers, we are back. And this episode is going to be new, refreshing, and exciting because this company is doing new, refreshing, and exciting things. So I'm sitting down today with the founder, John Lyotier, with TravelAI.com, which, if you listen to my other podcast, Good Morning Hospitality, we've discussed some of the recent news of TravelAI's recent acquisition around Casai, the domain at least. And it's, if you don't know what that whole story was, a Latin American property management company called Casai was out in, I believe, Mexico City. And they were running a bunch of properties throughout Mexico, Brazil, and a few other destinations. And unfortunately went out of business. But TravelAI came in and swooped up the domain. And I'll let John tell the rest of the story after we get into it in the episode. But John, welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Of course, you and I have had a couple back and forths. We've got introduced to, or not to, but from Emmanuel Lavoie, which is a good friend of the show, but also a good friend of me. And sounds like you guys have been creating quite the business. But before we jump into TravelAI, we'd love to know your background. So where does it all begin for you, my friend?
Well, we can go back to, I was just a small boy in northern BC, closer to the Alaskan border than the Canadian-US border on the southern side. But let's not go that far back. I guess you can say I was a child entrepreneur of the .com era, first startup back in 97, 98. And then I've been bouncing around all the online spaces ever since. Either running my own startups or other people's startups. Really since that first foray into entrepreneurship, a lot of relating back to marketing software, marketing automation, got heavily into the internet space through domain names, and eventually we formed a predecessor company, Left Technology, back in 2010. So, but really ever since, it's been doing startups in one sort or another, trying to identify that intersection between marketing and technology and going from there.
Question to you is, before we get into all the good stuff, what initially inspired you to actually start something on your own? And kind of a second part to that, doing so many startups for so long, from 97 plus on, do you ever get tired of starting a startup?
Get tired of starting? No, I get tired a lot. The starting is the fun part. People always talk about the 0 to 1 phase. That's the fun part. What got me started in the very first place, going to school, I was a liberal arts major, English and art history. I wanted to get into law, realized in my final year of university, I didn't want to be a lawyer, it'd be too much paperwork. And then, of course, well, what do you do? And I had no idea. And I got talking to a bit of a mentor at the time about a couple different ideas. And I said, I think I want to go back to school to study this new thing called e-business. The internet is really, really cool. I think this could be absolutely transformative to all fabric of society. And I think there's a real opportunity there. I should go back and do a master's in e-business at a university of Iowa or Indiana or an I-State. And he says, well, why would you do that? The internet is transforming so quickly here. Why don't you just go start a company? And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, you have all the ideas. You're always talking about these ideas. Just go take the $50,000 to $20,000 I'd set aside and the 20 hours a week I had planned on going back to school part-time and start something. And I took his advice. I started a company. I had no idea what I was going to do, but I used the resources that were available on the internet, and I started something. And of course, it failed. Then you start something else, and of course, that fails. And you just keep on dabbling and learning and trying. And eventually, you stumble into something that may or may not work. But it's the starting part that is the exhilarating part, is that starting brand new. So no, there's no tiredness from that. There's tiredness from the journey. The monotony sometimes of the day-to-day, once you've already built stuff, that's boring and that becomes tiresome. But the starting the new stuff, that's exhilarating.
So you definitely consider yourself a 0 to 1.
I'm a 0 to 1. At some point in the venture we're creating here, it'll become 1 to N. And at that point, it'll be somebody else's job. I know what I'm good at. I like and it's not that we haven't built large companies before at our peak before we were almost 200 employees. So it's not like it's but in the grand scheme of things, that's considered small business still. But from where I'm good at is seeing the trends, seeing the possibilities, seeing the technologies as they evolve and how things will evolve. And I remember, this is now probably 20 years ago, I was doing some work with a different project And I started, then I stopped. And, and the guy said, well, why not? You have a great idea. I said, yeah, but if you look 3 or 4 years down the road, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. Then what's the point? Because you start to see those logical conclusions of where things are going to go, and you kind of quickly dismiss your idea. And about that starting point of how these things play together is the exciting part. Sometimes it's hard to convince other people that that's where the world is going. But I see a lot of those things that are 3 to 5 years down the road as inevitable. Just a question of what can you do to be part of that journey from here to there.
What was the outcome of that? Were you correct?
I was correct. Absolutely. 100%
Okay.
correct. I told them that they should stop. I was doing some consulting with a company. It says, this interesting idea is never going to work. And it says, yes, but we're paying you to make it work. Yeah, but it's save my time, save your time. This will never work. And it's, as a founder, I hate people when you tell me that. I've been told that probably more times than I can imagine. But that's, how do you then pivot into what can work, or where are the opportunities? Because there's so many opportunities surrounding us, and in every industry, in every country, and in all parts of the world. Just trying to identify where are those opportunities with those things that can work. How can you pivot or adapt, or take a nugget of something and turn it into something larger? It's we had early on in our journey into travel, we were working on a few things, and you start to look at the Jim Collins good to great philosophy of the hedgehog principle, and tries to encourage those companies that make that process and that step from being good companies to great companies. And you have to have that one thing that you focus on all the time, and you do that one thing really, really well. And so I guess the book was built to last with hedgehog principle, and good to great was how does a good company become a great company? And at the time, we were looking at it from a management perspective. That's what you got to do. You have to make that principle. It says, yes, but we're not a good company yet. We're just this small little scrappy startup. How do we become a good company? And we adopted a principle we're kind of calling more the Sonic Hedgehog principle, where you have to be focused on your core, but you have to be a bit responsive and keep your head up with what's going on around you in case you see opportunities to jump. And if I was to look back on really the last 15 years of entrepreneurship, it's been exactly that: is how do you identify those opportunities when they're there and be ready to strike when the iron is hot? Because there are opportunities everywhere. And if you have an organization that I don't use the business speak of agile or lean or any of those methodologies, but they're there for a reason. It's how do you be responsive and be fast when the incumbents are big and slow. And if you can have those as your core part of your flywheel, you can really drive your organization further and faster.
Dang. Yeah, I was going to say, I love good to great. I'm curious though, would you ever say maybe it can contradict itself in the sense of, if you're focused on your core, but then you're keeping an eye or swivel on what's happening around you, sometimes, at least for me, I know myself as a founder, I'm a little too shiny object syndrome sometimes. So I don't know.
Yeah. I think every founder, the 0 to 1 founder, and there's different types of the 0 to 1 founder, you have to be, we're all ADHD, ADD, distracted by all sorts of things. Concurrent within that, you have to know your core. It's still very important to know what is your fundamental thing that you're doing, and how do you build back towards that fundamental truth. And some people call it first principles. What is that one thing you can do? And at any moment in time on that journey, you do have to know what is your one thing that you can do, and then do that really, really well. And if you always go back to that, a lot of the work you do on a day-to-day basis is, frankly, is meaningless. From the point of that, we're not going to move the organizations forward, but there's always that one thing you can embrace that you can do that should go back to your core. What is this fundamental truth that makes the business what it is? And that's what we've embraced all the way along. And you start to do that. And actually, funnily enough, when the pandemic happened, and I didn't realize how much of my day to day was spent on things that don't matter. And I'm not saying people don't matter. We had an incredible culture in the before times, winning awards for culture and community engagement. But there's a lot of your every day that's spent up on meetings and conversations and dealing with board matters and dealing with those things that make companies really good from 1 to N, that don't matter if you're 0 to 1. And arguments over people about job titles. With not a single week went by that didn't talk about somebody's job title. It matters to them. It's important to their world of one. But frankly, from the organization's perspective, it didn't really matter a lot, which gives you a whole lot more time to focus on the things that do matter. Your customers, your markets, seeing opportunities, building experiences, whatever it is that is your one. And that one differs for every organization. It's not for me to say, hey, your one should be this. It's like culture. Every company has a different culture. You may have a performance culture, you may have a sales culture, you may have a customer culture. It's not for someone else to come back and say, your culture should be this. It's the culture is the organization, just like your one is the same thing.
Really good. Really good. Well, take me back to the time where it was a company of 200 employees. Let's talk maybe the before COVID times, the BC, as we like to call it, the new BC at least. So give me the overall arch. If you could explain your company in a 60-second elevator pitch, what would that be?
So the company started off as known as left of the .media, left of the .com. We didn't pivot into travel until about 3 years into the company, but our core at that point was a recognition that 80 to 90% of all businesses are the same. They have their people systems, their technology systems, their financial stack. But the part that differed was the brand and business model. And for us, we were focusing on high-end generic domain names, and whatever the business model was, didn't really matter. For us, is if we were experts at the core, the people, the process, the systems, the technology, we can put in different businesses and brands on top of that. We did that for a few years, lots of failure, probably 15 of the first 16 projects failed along the way. We started to get a little bit of traction. We had an exit in 2013 that brought us into the travel space a little bit by accident. So we started to do more of it. I would say people seem to like this travel. Let's keep on doing more. We launched a series of brands that would be definitely classified as meta. So the Trivagos, the Skyscanners, the Googles of the world that people operate in the meta space. We are meta for short-term rentals and built up a series of brands in that market, along with other technologies that had nothing to do with travel. We had a mobile mesh networking technology company that brought connectivity to emerging markets. We had a crypto underpinning of that. We dabbled in some insurance plays all over the place. But really, the part that made the money was travel. The part that spent the money was this Swiss-based crypto project that connected the world. So a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But travel really came back to the forefront in sort of the 2018, 2019 timeframe and was growing great, growing really, really well up into the pandemic. And then I think in our pre-call, we were talking about the end of January 2020, coming back through Hong Kong on a trip with my head of data science. And I had to ask him again tell me again that this pandemic's not a big deal. And he says, no, we're up 80% month over month. I've just done, I think like 400 million in gross booking value. Life was great. Wow. I said, but there's nobody in the airport. And of course, everybody knows what happened next. You go into life support, you try to preserve and protect, you do whatever you can. And unfortunately, the company that we had at that point, everything we built up to that point came down to crashing halt. The company ceased to exist in August of 2020. And then myself and my co-founders and the founding team had to say, oh shit, well, now what happens? And we had to basically reinvent ourselves to say, what's the next chapter going to be?
It's kind of crazy, but not at the same time, because it was such a strange period of time for all of us. And I specifically, not to put the spotlight on Emmanuel and Mike from Jetstream, but they had a very similar story with the company being acquired. Then COVID happened, and then they bought it back basically for $1 and tried to all right, what are we going to do? And all these things, and it was a wild period.
It was when they were going through. I've known Mike and Emmanuel for years as well, which is why he thought we'd have great conversations, I'm sure. I remember before they joined the Red Awning team, we were talking about them. Did it make sense for us to explore an acquisition of their thing? And definitely it did. We love the team, we love the technology, and then as you started to progress forward, their strategy and our strategy, and their story and our story were very similar in that. How do you have a chance to start again? How do you have a chance to reinvent yourselves into the kind of company that you could create? Like, don't get me wrong, we had an incredible team, an incredible company, but in every organization, there's always things you want to change. Yes. It's great culture, award-winning culture at that moment in time, but when we restarted, we were able to rethink everything. What's truly important to us? What are we trying to create? Starting a company in 2024 is much different than starting a company in 2010. You have all these existing rails that you can ride on for all these previous enabling technologies that can help you create the time. From staffing to payments to marketing to servers to talent anywhere in the world. You can basically just use the best and brightest of wherever you happen to be, just not in your own neighborhood. So how do you create a company for a new time in the post-pandemic world? And what does the company look like? What are the challenges? Where are the opportunities? What can you do differently? For us, it was pretty obvious that we had seen the advent of AI technologies. We knew that was where the future was going to go. It was I can go back to where I sort of saw some AI technologies for the first time, but we knew in that sort of spring of 2021 that the future was going to be AI, and really within that future that is going to be AI, it requires data. It requires a whole lot of data. Who has the data and all these different things? But you start looking at what we have at our core and what we're good at and what we're not good at. And we realized that we had a decade working in travel. And for us, it was a no-brainer to take the world's largest industry of travel with the most disruptive technology the world had ever seen and was about to see. And it's still not evenly distributed today. But the technology that the world's about to see and put them together in some capacity. What could you create where you combine travel and AI? And hence we are now TravelAI.com.
So explain to us now that you had this moment in August of 2020 with the team and your co-founders and other, people that were involved in the business pre-COVID. And you're like, shit, what do we do? You're seeing AI, travel, obviously a huge, huge $1 trillion industry. There's a huge opportunity. Where do you begin? Especially with, you need data, you need all these things. Did you guys whip up old tech? What was kind of like the starting point?
So I guess if you go back into the business in the before times, we had what we called a content traveler data loop. And that content traveler data loop exists not just in our business, in a lot of businesses where you have a chunk of content. That content can attract travelers. Those travelers give you data. Content is not a blog post, although it could be a blog post. Content could be one of our meta websites. We have a whole bunch of supply from our partners, and that is content. It could be an activities feed. It could be social content. It could be advertisements, magazines, trade publications. That's content. And that content attracts travelers. How do you attract travelers? It may be in some of the marketing programs. It could be organic traffic from SEO. It could be paid traffic from performance marketing. It could be social traffic. However you attract those travelers, they get attracted because of the content that you have. And those travelers give you data. They give you search intent. They give you conversion metrics. They give you all sorts of intelligence about what they're looking for. And we used to say that the data inform the content. So you get this loop. Content attracts travelers. Travel gives you data. Data informs content. But in the world of AI, that magic leap between data and content was formed. Data is not just informing content, but the data is creating content. And now if you inject more data, more content, more travelers, the loop goes faster and faster and faster. And data can create content. You can have a transaction that comes through that talks about an island that you've never even heard of. And all of a sudden the machine can go out and create content about that particular spot because the data told you that people are searching for this concept, create an entire site around this concept. And the machine itself can actually create it based on what's coming through. So we knew that going in. We were starting to build a new platform because we wanted to do it again. We knew that there's money being made in the space. We had a very profitable side of the business. We were spending it all on the other non-profitable side, mind you, but we knew that the core of the business was highly profitable and growing and in demand. When you have the overall travel market growing, doubling in a generation, we knew it was the right market to be in. So how do we do it? Well, we kind of got fortunate that we decided to bid for the assets of the predecessor company, and in that sort of that nice little surprise story, we myself and my founding team, we pooled capital together. We put second mortgages on houses. We sold crypto. Wow. We tapped into savings. We did whatever we could, And we were successful in buying 100% of the assets of the predecessor company through the courts. Wow. Most importantly, what we were buying is the data. We knew, so everybody else was bidding on the asset value of the company. We're bidding on this server that's sitting in AWS that had a whole bunch of data on it. And we knew that's where the value of the company was. So we were fortunate. We were able to buy that back and buy the whole predecessor company. So in a way, we are a 3-year-old startup in the spring of 2021. In a way, we're a 3-year-old startup with 13 years of experience in travel. But that really got us going to where we are today.
Isn't that crazy? You have to buy back something that you owned at one point already. Yeah.
It isn't. It isn't. Like we had an investor that joined us back in 2010.
Okay.
So we didn't.
So the cap table wasn't just.
So the cap table wasn't just us. And I don't want to get into board dynamics and of those things, but it wasn't. At 10 years in, you're talking about, are you tired? After 10 years, we were exhausted. Like it's because you fight for everything that you need to create and grow. And I'd hate to talk about the good things of the pandemic, but frankly, the pandemic was the best thing we ever happened to us. I had 6 months off to recharge. I have young children that I had started, where I had young children when we started the venture 14 years ago. Now they're graduating from school and off to university. But it was a chance to reset, to refocus, to recharge, to get 100% of the cap table. That was an important thing because it was our venture, our ideas, our concept, our dollars, that let's go off and do this again. So, so you bought it back, but you are rejuvenated with a group that will work. And that's where we are now.
I love it. And so for the listeners' sake, you guys, what you do now is this data creates meta sites based on specific niche traveler trends and data points you guys are seeing through the overall globe of websites and other things. I know I'm probably butchering it, so I'd love for you to...
That's fair. I guess maybe a better way to look at it is I talked about on other podcasts and other groups before about the promise forever of mass personalization and that promise in marketing parlance of that one-to-one marketing. Can you ever get to true one-to-one marketing where you get the chance to market to an audience of one? And most websites market to an audience of the world or English-speaking world, or if you're a property manager in Mount Baker, just sort of outside the Seattle area, and you want to go out and attract people in your neck of the woods, you have your audience that you market to, and they may market to people in BC or Washington State, but that's basically their audience of that group. What the AI technologies have started to enable is you can get no longer just an audience of one. Or let's start at the direction. You are Brand Expedia, you're booking, you're a large OTA or travel seller. You have an audience of the entire world, the web of 5 million. And then you go down to, can you bring it down to just that Mount Baker cabin rentals type concept and the web of 5,000. And then you basically bring it smaller down and say, how do I market to Will? How do I get down to the audience of just Will? What does Will want at this moment in time in this audience? And if we can figure out what Will wants and give you exactly what you want, then you can basically have that audience of one. And what the AI technologies have enabled us to go out and build a whole series of meta sites that cater to our customers. Our customers are not travelers, much like a large part of your audience. Our customers are travel sellers, large OTAs, Booking, Expedia, Home to Go, travel sellers of that nature that rely on us to drive more demand into marketplace, like Trivago, like Skyscanner, like Kayak. And our travelers are the product that they want. They want high intent, high converting traveler who has a certain want and need. If I can deliver them Will, who's ready to buy on a platter, says, here's Will. He's approximately 35 to 40 years old. He likes these things. He likes slow walks with a moonlit stroll, whatever your package would happen to be, to deliver that person up to your customer when you're ready to buy. That's what we try to create. So really all of our brands that we create, and we now have more than 400 of them across. So we did different levels. Some have audiences of one, or did really small niche markets. So in Mount Baker, I think we have Mount Baker cabin rentals or something of that nature. We have a Mount Baker website, but we also would have cities around the world in different languages. Some are very large, some are very small, but each one is based on the data that we have that we believe that there's a waiting and willing customer at some point in time that would speak to that particular brand. Because the carrying cost of those brands is very, very small now. It's the AI technologies that we've created from web building technologies to go out and push a button and build a website. It used to take days and weeks to build brands, or for that matter, months and years. And now you can do so with mass personalization, mass customizations at rates that you couldn't do before.
Mm-hmm. I was gonna say, thanks for aging me up as a traveler. I turned 29 this year. Yeah. I turned 29, and all of a sudden I'm pushed into the 30 mark. But no, you've
achieved so much then. So once again, congratulations on your entrepreneurial journey. You've achieved a lot in a short amount of time.
Yeah, it's been a journey for sure. But I will say the perk of it is I get to talk to great entrepreneurs on the show, and I'm learning and applying as we go. So it's a nice build the plane as you fly, but I'm building it while observing others build their plane too.
Yeah.
So it's super cool. And I love Mount Baker, by the way. I grew up on Camino Island, just a little bit south, right between Seattle and the Canadian border, or Mount Baker, or Bellingham, as a lot of people would know. Great area. Super fun, especially in the spring and summer.
We have a website for an island just off in the we have an island domain that's just down there. I forget what it is, but
would be Orcas.
No, it was Orcas Island, but it was something like that. It was even more specific than that. Like one small little island has a small community, but there was 50 vacation rentals on the island. Now people would search for one of those 50 vacation rentals. We have something that matches exactly what they're looking for. It looks like you're looking for whatever it is. I was going to say St. Andrew, but that's not right. Whatever the island is, here's a brand that speaks to you about the properties that you're on. It's like, I am looking for that. That's exactly what I want. Micro-targeted. In a way, it's not that much different than many of the large hotel brands that your audience will be familiar with. If you take the Hilton or the Hyatt or the large groups, they have segments down, but they probably have 20 segments. They have the luxury brand, the mid-market brand, the premium economy discount brand, on and on and on. We have a pet-friendly brand, a family-friendly brand, an eco-friendly brand, a cabins brand, a vacationcottages.com brand. We have on and on and on, and just keep on slicing and slicing and slicing down to that nth degree of that. Obviously, it's your classic 80-20, where most of the value is extracted from a small percentage of our brands. Rentbyowner.com obviously is our signature brand, but now we also have Casai as a new brand that we were wanting to launch a new luxury brand, and that one kind of fell into our lap. So we sort of alluded to that at the very beginning. But what can we do now to make Casai a signature brand rather than just a Mount Baker cabin rentals brand? And how do we turn that into a much more global brand?
Well, so I have a couple questions, because one, on our other show, Good Morning Hospitality, we were talking not only about the Casai acquisition with you guys, but recently the Google change in algorithm. So impacting operators in hotel short-term rentals. There was some that are like, yes, we definitely saw a big difference. B, no, we didn't see anything. Or C, yeah, we saw a difference, but it's a positive change, not a negative. So I want to ask you on kind of like the impact. If you have over 400 brands under kind of the one umbrella and being created more and more each day, does A, that have any impact on you? And then two, I would love to dive into your thoughts, because this is something I haven't talked about it much on this show, but I know from conferences and other conversations I have with people in the industry, one of my things I think I kind of saw happening in COVID, or at least a little bit after, especially when Airbnb launched their categories feature and product update, is the micro searchability is becoming more and more key. It's becoming more key to success in occupancy, getting found, getting that one-to-one customer. I would love to know, one, do you agree with that statement, or where do you kind of see the micro search portion of the industry kind of shaping up?
Let's start with the first question first. We're going back to Google, because it does definitely go into the second part. Yes, we saw impact. Some went up, some went down, some dropped off the face of the earth, which is kind of sad. We thought they were great brands that should do well. They had good content and we thought was addressing a certain market niche. and you go from a few thousand visits to zero. That hurts on those brands. Other brands jump by the equal amount. And I said, well, why do some brands go up and some brands go down? And I think fundamentally you have to go back and say, what is Google trying to do? And what I think Google's trying to do is that they want to be as helpful. Well, they want to make money, of course, but they want to organize the world's information and be helpful to the consumer / the traveler when they conduct the search. Google has told anybody who's playing in the online space that if you're nice to Google, Google will be nice to you. If you're helpful to the users, you provide real value going forward. And when we distilled down and looked at some of our sites, frankly, they weren't very helpful. They had issues that what makes our vacationcottages.com brand and a certain property that we'd be promoting on that brand different than a cottage we might find on Read by Owner. And the answer was not much. You take a brand like our Pickle Trip site, pickletrip.com, where we market to people who are interested in playing pickleball when they travel. That went up. Why'd that one go up and Vacation Cottage go down? So, well, we have on that one is, here's a list of places that pickleball courts within geo proximity to a place you want to stay at. For people who love pickleball, that's very important and very relevant. And frankly, we're probably the only place on the planet that has a place to identify pickleball courts. But our pet-friendly site went up. We had brands that we provided real value back to the users that was distinct and unique. That was a certain slice of the data that we were able to provide that nobody else could. As you start to go into your second part of your question about the micro searchability and really what Google is trying to do, I think, is the more you can provide that unique perspective to that traveler about what's unique to them at that moment in time, the better off the traveler would be. And therefore, you're nice as a traveler, you're nice to Google, and Google should reward you with that great organic traffic. I think if you break things down sort of one level below that, if we talk about the web of 5 million, the web of 5,000, the web of 1, Google's starting to prepare for the web of none. What happens when the world moves beyond search when there is no website? What happens when you have the search generative experience that's in the current Google, how do they use AI to deliver results? And they're now giving very customized experiences. It looks like, Will, you're looking for this. Here's the information back to you. But they're still presenting it in a way that is a website. And then below that, they surround the 10 blue links of organic results and paid results or meta listings. But the micro searchability, the categorizations, it's all going down to trying to deliver to the user at the moment that they search and raise their hand. Because really that's what search is. It's the marketing relationship. Yeah. A call this morning with one of my product managers, I relayed something that I learned from my first start back in 97 that I said that the world is divided into two halves of marketing and sales, and that marketing is about getting a customer to raise their hand and say, my name is John and I want this. And the moment you've done that, it goes into a sales relationship. My name is John and I want to stay at a cabin on Mount Baker. Now you know, as that property owner or Google or Airbnb or pick your channel, that, hey, there's this person here. He wants to book a place. Now, how do I escalate that intent or that interest and get them to go further down that sales funnel to the point that they actually consummate the sale? Then it goes into customer service and management and all those things, but it's the marketing to sales handoff. And I think what we've just seen in this recent transformation is that you can now do mass marketing and mass sales all with the same software suite, which is Canada Generative Technologies, answer questions on behalf of the consumers to give them what they want. That's the mass personalization. That's the micro segmentation. That's the categorization coming down into yes, I can give those customers exactly what they want. And that's frankly what Google wants. They just need to figure out a way to get paid for it.
True. Question to you. Does this hurt or impact hospitality positively? From a hospitality experience point of view, from the personalization piece, because I think we all want personalization, right? Like I want, when I check into the Marriott Courtyard or the Ritz-Carlton or an STR by John, I would love personalization. But does something like this help or hinder?
I think it has a chance to dramatically help. And if you take off the Western-centric glasses for a second, you look at where are travelers coming from. One of the things that hurt us greatly was that our focus before the pandemic was on international travelers. Can you attract somebody from Japan to go to Whistler? Can you attract somebody from Bangladesh, where we have an engineering center, to go to New York City? And those international travel lanes, which is the fastest growing segment of the market, also was dramatically impacted by COVID. But it's very challenging for a small property manager or a small hotelier to market to an international audience and give them the service that they would want in their languages, with their pain points, with that understanding. Now you can have an agent who is completely fluent in all the languages, available 24/7 to answer all of your customer needs. That's kind of cool. What can that agent do, and how can they help? And we're building we're strong believers in the future of agents and actions, and we're building an agent network powered by our what we call our TripBot initiative. But we believe that we can create an agent for every single hotel, every single activity, every single resort, every single DMO should be able to have an agent that is all knowing about that particular hotel, that location, that activity, capable of answering the questions of that traveler at all moments in time. Like it's my first job in travel, which I was thinking about the other day. I never thought I was a travel guy, but I worked for Tours of Vancouver when I was a university student. So I was advising people to come to Vancouver. It's great, and here's why. But I would answer letters. Like, people would write letters to us, not email. It was pre-email. They would write letters, and I would respond to letters. We have a toll-free phone number that you'd have to answer the thing. But your job was to promote the region and the city in the best possible way, and you get educated about everything there is to know about the city. But I didn't know everything about the city. I was a young university kid. What did I know about certain activities? But I had to pretend I knew, and I had to quickly look through your Rolodex of who do we have as a member, and you had your early CRM system that wasn't a CRM system to look up members and what they did. Now you have machines that do that. Now you have that all-knowing, all-powerful, trained to be in whatever language or voice you want, capable of answering those questions. So I think it helps. I think it can free up people to spend more one-on-one time with people. It augments their ability to respond back to more guests, offer better services, to have a sense of memory. If you build in retrieval augmented generation, RAG, it's called. Can you build a sense of memory into these agents or into these queries? You can. So how do you use those agents to answer questions and help? And that really what it comes down to is, can you help?
So we have a lot of property managers and hoteliers, kind of a mix, that listen to this. I'm curious, from their perspective, they're listening to this and like, holy crap, this could change my business. This could free up so much time. But this is also something completely unknown to me. I'm not from this world. I've never even imagined, AI, a lot of people think ChatGPT, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the go-to. So with them having that kind of understanding, and probably discrediting a lot of people listening to the show that have probably a deeper understanding than I even do. And so I'm sorry for all the listeners out there. I'm just trying to help the mass, not the select few. But for that, you guys, you said earlier, your customer is the people with supply mostly.
Yeah.
It's the OTAs that have the supply on there. Is the property manager the type of customer for you as well? Like, are you guys trying to gain more inventory, or is it really through the channels rather than through a direct supplier, which is AKA turning over the homes or managing the experience behind the scenes?
Maybe eventually we'll have those direct relationships with the property managers and such. But we're going to be a Jetstream's number one fan here. Right now, those groups should be using Jetstream and push all the inventory onto the main channel sellers, and then we get them onto our site. So if you're using Jetstream, you can push up to a channel. You then come back onto our site. It's the OTAs have done a great job of aggregating supply. We've ensured that our job is to focus on the demand. And when they need more supply, we are there. We can deliver them more. So if various property managers are going out into that, then that's good. I think the common response for our property managers, yes, but I don't want to pay that online travel seller their commissions and driving this traffic. I want that back in my pocket. And that's what everybody thinks, wants, hopes, and things. But one of the reasons why we got into travel in the first place is that it's the first industry we've ever come across in which if there's more money available from the pot, it doesn't necessarily go into the hands of the supply. It goes into the hands of the traveler, discounted rates more available. But what that traveler does is turns around and puts it back to buy more travel. And it's not like, oh, great, I'll put this in and I'll go off and spend something else over here, different industry. It's, oh, I can save $100 on my room class or my property. Maybe I'll go up a room. Maybe I'll stay an extra night. Maybe I'll do another activity. And so basically, if you can bring efficiencies into the market rather than having money come out of the market, more money goes back into the market for a better experience. And we think that's a really cool thing. For the property managers who are looking to start with and exploring AI technologies and things, yes, of course, dabble with ChatGPT or Claude. Meta's new product came out last week, and I don't know when this podcast will air, but last week Meta announced their Meta.ai and brought in their AI projects across basically the entire ecosystem from Facebook to WhatsApp. It is really cool. Llama 3, which is based on, is world changing. I don't think the world is ready for the change it's about to unleash by having this free virtually software that any application provider can go and create value in. And as soon as you have that value being created by the builders, people like ourselves, say, what app can I recreate using this tool? Can I go out and create a hotel agent that's capable of answering all my inbound sales queries so nothing ever goes to voicemail? And knows all of the rates and availability and discounts and specials and everything you want. What happens then? What happens with the property manager who's wants to take a night off and not respond to guest inquiries? Can those guest inquiries still be answered effectively? AI can do that. So when those things start happening and that momentum gets there, it will come because these enabling technologies are now free, fast, and available, and all of us can take advantage of it.
Do you ever think, so I told you before recording, I had a really fascinating conversation with Andrew Kitchell from Wheelhouse. And we talked about the technology landscape, specifically in the short-term rental side, current today and kind of what we expect for the future. And my kind of devil's advocate type, change on the host of me. And normally I'm a very positive guy, but I wanted to kind of try and poke some holes. And, one of my kind of statements was, when does the barrier of entry become so low that it doesn't help innovation, but it creates oversaturation? And I'm curious to know from, he had a really great question. So the episode will come out before this episode does. So all the listeners go back and listen. But I'm curious to know, like, if this AI type of technology where everything's free, fast, and super personalized and accurate, does that hinder, or does that actually help? Is this going to create innovation, or is this just going to create a mass flood to the market of consumers are now going to have thousands of apps or products or softwares or bookings or whatever to then pick from, and there's just maybe this is how my brain works, but overstimulate to the point there's too many options now. You have too much in front of you.
There's already too many options. And so let's sort of break it down. I think we have in our network about 45 or 50,000 vacation rentals in Orlando. That's too many for one person to choose from. And if you're that 50,000 and first property coming in Orlando, you're not going to get discovered. So you already have a problem with too much right now. But let's bring it out of travel into information as a whole. And this is probably a dated figure. It's probably completely outdated. But several years ago, we used to say that there's more data generated every 2 years in all of human history in the previous ever before in 2 years. It's probably now every 6 months, because that status is, I think, about 4 or 5 years old. So don't quote me on that, but there's a lot of information being created. There was Thomas Friedman wrote a book. He wrote a book many years ago called The World is Flat. Great book and pivotal for my thinking about the world. But he wrote another book, probably about 2016, 2017 timeframe, called Thank You for Being Late. And Thank You for Being Late was really looking at the pace of innovation and the pace of change versus humans' ability to adapt to that change. And what do we do? And how do we adapt to the change? And already the pace of information, pace of change has outpaced our ability to adapt to it. So because that one's going up exponentially. The other one is going up linearly. And even today, we had a call with my product team, and we're talking about some of our tests since Llama 3 launched last week. And we basically have been able to build it into we have a product called Content Kitchen, which creates content for a lot of our sites. I think I demonstrated that to you way back when.
Yeah. It was super cool.
But we've been able to basically, from launch last Thursday to Saturday morning, implement it into our project. And now we're building things using Llama 3. So within 48 hours of, hey, it's available to production, we're now producing content using this new engine. Our costs dropped precipitously on our content creation costs. But so I was talking about that with the team. I get off the phone call, go on to take a break before the next call. And Microsoft released a new product this morning that said, hey, look, it's outperforming Llama 3. And it's like, okay, I just talked about it to the team 40 minutes earlier, and now already something has come along and they usurped it again. Even in the announcement where Mark Zuckerberg's talking about the launch of Llama 3 and Meta.ai and all the different initiatives, he said, we had to stop training Llama 3 and the 70 billion parameter model, which is kind of the measure of how much it knows for base understanding. He said, because we needed the servers to train up our 400 billion model. So already they know that we know there's a bigger thing coming down the pipe that will replace its current ones. So if you're trying to hope to keep up, you can't. So the question is, how do you learn or how do you adapt to this? Yeah. And I remember going to a summit in San Francisco last spring and coming back to our team and writing off a bit of a note to the team, talking about AI technologies are already here. They've been here for a decade. They're just not evenly distributed. And when you think about it, because I'm not sure if you've been to San Francisco recently, but there's self-driving cars everywhere. And you walk around and he's like, oh my God, there's a self-driving car. And he's like, oh, but this is so cool. And you take your camera out, you take pictures, and you send it back to your kids. It's like, look at this, it's a self-driving car. And the people that you're with for locals, like, yeah, so they've been here for years. But to those who aren't experiencing it, this is mind-blowing that there's a self-driving car, which really is AI technology as an application. And I think it's going to be the same thing in years in different geographies, in different markets, in different segments, where the AI technologies that are just around us, they'll just be there. And we'll adapt, because we always do as a species. We'll learn to adapt. We'll change. We'll learn to use them. They'll become part of the family in a way. And you won't imagine doing anything else but use those technologies because they're always there. Can you imagine not having a smartphone today? Especially as a travel device. It's the world's greatest travel companion. It's your map, it's your keys, it's your wallet, it's your insurance, it's your security, it's your camera. It's the world's greatest travel companion. Can you imagine not traveling with a smartphone again? No, you can't do it. It will be the same thing with the agents that you'll have that will have full knowledge of all your wants, needs, hopes, dreams, desires, whether you like those long walks on the beach when you're traveling, whether you like a certain pillow fluffiness in your hotel, all that will be available to those to give you better guest experiences. And I think that's a pretty cool thing. Making it more efficient in the process. And I do think that's where we're headed. And it's kind of hard to stop it. So might as well embrace it and figure out how do you take advantage of this brave new world we're living in at a pace that you can't keep up with, because it's not slowing down.
No. I was just going to ask you that question. How do you take advantage of that? I know you guys have your own technology around this in the sense of AI and what it's doing currently for your business. I look at my business or even my property management company or anything else, and I'm like, oh man, hearing all that, I feel far behind already. And so I'm just very curious.
Well, I'd say listen to great podcasts like yours. There's incredible information on that. But like I said, I can't keep up, and I live with it on a day-to-day basis. And I have certain people I follow that keep me apprised who do things, but I can't keep up. So you shouldn't necessarily try to keep up, but you should always try to learn. One of the things that we built into all of our technology stacks when we started building it is try to be as agnostic as possible. So when we started building our Content Kitchen engine on, I guess it was OpenAI 3 API, and then you go 3.5, then you go 4, then you go Claude, then you go into all these different previews models, and now you drop in Llama, then you drop in Mistral, whatever, you're constantly trying new things to have the output that goes back, but it goes back into At the very start of the conversation, we're talking about those one things. What is that one thing that you do that as an organization is core to us? Foundationally, we believe that travel is the best industry on the planet by far. When people travel, they have a chance to make a difference in the world. They see the different world in a different way. And what we want to do is we want to make more people travel and travel better. And if you look at the supply and demand of any marketplace, marketplace has been around for millennia. We're not new with having an online travel seller, or you have Emmanuel's group and his Leave Town brand, or any of those things. They're not new. They've been around for a long time, connecting those who want with those who have. And our job is to bring those who want to those who have in a more efficient manner. And if you can do that, everybody wins. And we think that's a good thing.
I'm completely mind blown by this conversation in a lot of ways, because it's, we obviously had a couple of pre-chats and discussed different things, but this is it's so much more fascinating. And like, not that the pre-chats weren't fascinating, you know what I'm saying? Like this is like, no, not what I mean at all. I take that back. Take this out of the edit. Just kidding. We'll keep it. But it's, it does open up your mind, because, I'm here, I hear different things. So I try to listen to other podcasts outside of the industry. I'm a classic victim to Joe Rogan every now and then. On top of then, This Week in Startups or other kind of, brands and podcasts to talk about, there's one side where AI, like you kind of mentioned with your guys' websites, it's constantly creating a new site. It's constantly creating new and improving itself over time. And, you hear this Joe Rogan side where like, oh, well, then the AI just keeps creating itself, and then it becomes a god, because it now has created so many elements and versions and elevations of itself that it just knows all things, and it's constantly forever evolving before you could even think about the other version that happened. And then I hear, podcast episodes where a child who by the time they're 4 years old has taken more input data points from their own two eyes to their brain. If we're going to put the person into a kind of a, software, talk here, where they've taken more input into their brain from their eyes and their own, senses than ChatGPT or any of these other OpenAI companies, right? Are even training any of their models on. So you have 4 times trillions the data points from a child that up to 4 years old compared to OpenAI, which a lot of people know today. So it's like AI is it could be super advanced, where it becomes a literal god, where it becomes so in tune with itself and evolved that we just can't do anything about it. To the point of it's so far behind, by the time you're 4 years old, you're way past any data amount kind of trained model out there. So do you, like, I guess, where do you land on that? Like, how does the consumer, an entrepreneur, a human even just kind of try to understand this stuff? And I've never brought up like the dark side of AI on the show.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like,
there's all sorts of dark sides, and that, and I'd be remiss to say there's lots of dark sides. And if you're not careful, it can create all sorts of dystopian futures and things. But I'm a techno optimist at heart. I've seen the good that any technology can do in the world. If you only go back a few hundred years and see the problems of plagues and I don't say plagues, we just had one. But it's, can you imagine from before? So technology has a chance to impact things for the better. Going back into, we've been dabbling different AI technologies for many years, and going into, say, 2017, 2018, if somebody had asked me what distinguishes man from machine, I would have would have given an answer about the ability to generate art, and because really art is about generating and understanding the world around you. And if you can understand the world around you, whether it's the socioeconomic, political world, what influenced in the U.S. political system, or what's happening in the Middle East right now, or in Ukraine, all those things go around to influence the world of the artist today. And that manifests in music, it manifests in paintings, it manifests in sculpture. And if you go back through history, the artist has always been the one who basically brings that humanity into the machine and into society. And in 2018, I had a good fortune of speaking at the Southwest conference in Austin on can blockchain technologies solve global poverty. I think is what the talk was on. But I had a chance there to go around to see a lot of different sessions where you see the technologists creating the technology that's creating art. Here's the technology creating music. You can't do that. Oh, wow, that's really good. And that was 7 years ago. And now you see the stuff that's coming out in the last week or two of, this is amazing. You see the technology back then that was creating art. You had a machine that created a painting and a concept of who owns the painting. Well, I don't know. And let's get the copyright lawyers involved and see who owns this painting when a machine creates it on its own free will. That was 7 years ago. So the technology is advancing so quickly. Our ability to adapt to it is not adapting as quickly. But the role that we have in that 4-year-old child's eyes is that child can create art. That child can still infuse that creativity regardless of the machine. If they're playing with Play-Doh or if they're playing with crayons or doing whatever, Tinker Toys, they're creating something the world had never seen before. That's why Lego is so awesome. Lego is the best invention in the whole world. So it basically lets your imagination run wild. Now we basically have digital Legos that allows us as the creators to build whatever we want. And it's be kind of cool to see what we're going to create with it. When I studied, I said it was liberal arts major. I was English and art history. And the art history was not, oh, wow, pretty picture, but why did this artist create this work in time? I'm never an artist. I can't paint. I can't sculpt, but I can create companies. And the company I create today is my piece. That's my art, based on all the world I see around me, based on all the technology. And hopefully we have a chance to infuse a bit of soul into the machine to reflect a better world in the process.
Very well said, John. Very well said. I think let's clip it. We're going to clip that.
Okay.
That was good.
Cool.
No, I truly like that approach, because I think, it can become, depending on who you listen to and what you consume on a day-to-day basis, right? It can become very either dark or very light, where it's very, very sense of there's so endless possibilities versus, oh my gosh, this is the end of the world, humanity as we know it, et cetera. And, finding that line's right in between, where you're aware of the dark, but you're also aware of the light, and you can kind of choose what you're going to take in and what you're not. And I think it's, from my perspective, I want to go that route, because I am the same way. I'm an artist. I'm not an artist in the sense of drawing a painting or anything like that. I'm an artist in the conversation. I love the art of conversation. Is like it's not a book I'm working on, but it's something
you're using the technology you have available to us, the mediums you have of the time, to create a new art form that couldn't have existed 10 years ago, let alone a century ago. So we have I'm wearing my TravelAI logo T-shirt here, but the logo we adopted was that of a prism, and we find that the prism I have some dots behind me there, but I have some prisms sitting in my window here, and in different spots, I have rainbows everywhere. But the reason we adopted it as a symbol for the business is that from a single beam of light comes many colors. And the idea, you basically blend something that's very, very technical in the technology of the science behind a prism and what actually is happening with the colors that it creates and the beauty really that it can create from applying one, from one comes many, from one group of technologies comes many brands, from one feed of partners to many sites, from one opportunity, or we say from one vision, infinite possibilities. And that's kind of what drives us to where we are today. That's what we get to create. We get to blend the best of science and the best of humanity, and hopefully create something that's beautiful at the other end.
Again, very well said. Very well said. I love it. This has been such a fun episode. And I know there's a ton we didn't cover, from the Casai domain a little bit more in depth to the chart that you showed me last time we chatted. So I guess the listeners of Slick Talk, you tell me, this is part of the art here. Should we bring John on for a part 2? I think we need a part 2 in the future. So
love to do it anytime.
That will be the next part. I would love any questions any of our listeners have. FYI, I never really open up the third wall here, but I think really it's so fascinating and so fun. And today has been such a fun day of conversation. You definitely opened up some doors I wasn't expecting to go down, which is really cool on top of it. So just really thankful for your time today, John. I want to know, just from for listeners' sake, obviously we're going to put everything in the show notes, but if they want to connect with you, reach out, ask you questions, whatever it may be, where do they go and where do I send them?
You can send them onto LinkedIn, which is great, either for the TravelAI or me personally. It's my surname Lyotier is very unusual. You either find myself or my dad, nobody else in the world. He's also John, so you find him as well. But he's retired, and hopefully you can distinguish between one who's doing work and a person who's enjoying his fishing time. But yeah, if you search for my name, you will find me online, and it is me. There's nobody else out there with that surname. So LinkedIn, Twitter, it's all just at Lyotier for anything. But happy to have conversations with anybody at any time.
I love it. And I'll make sure all the links are in the show notes. So if you're searching, don't search, just click. You're easy, good, wham, bam, good to go.
And visit TravelAI.com. We grabbed the domain for purpose. We didn't get travel.ai. I know the owners. I've been trying to buy it, but we got TravelAI.com. So go there as well.
I love it. Yeah, TravelAI.com. A question for you before we wrap up and officially close out the episode, but what's next? Anything exciting that you guys are wanting to maybe open up a sneak peek to?
I hinted at our TripBot initiative. We have the largest portfolio of .bot domains. We believe like a lot of these .ai domains, but we think the .bot domain is going to come. So that's .bot. We have everything from trip.bot to hotel.bot to villa.bot, fly.bot, and on and on and on it goes. Go to trip.bot. We will hopefully start showing some previews there. But that's really exciting stuff that's coming down the future. It's as we create what we call our travel LLM to answer the world's information related to travel, it will be manifest through those brands. So stay tuned.
I love it. So definitely a part 2, maybe a part 3, guys. Just FYI. I love it. So John, thank you so much. For all the Slick Talkers, the links are in the show notes. Make sure you like and subscribe. All things TravelAI.com. John, all the fun stuff. And obviously, you guys know what to do. Like always, like and subscribe to the show, and we'll see you again next week. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to our show partners for making Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast, possible. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we would love to connect with you outside of the podcast. So you can follow us on all of our social media channels for daily hospitality content, or find us on slicktalkthepodcast.com. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm your host, Will Slickers, and we will see you guys all again next week.